What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Week 6 Fantasy Football. Now, this week in particular has some very important underlying scenarios at play here that make your opportunity to sell high on various fantasy football running backs even greater. This particular situation is the fact that throughout the first 5 weeks of the fantasy football season, we haven't had to deal with the absence of teams from game slates this year. Now in week 6, that changes. We've got the situation of bye weeks being present here. Teams like the Detroit Lions taking a step away to take some rest time and prepare extra for their week 7 games and beyond. And what this does is make the issue of positional scarcity amongst running backs in one quarterback leagues, even in your superflex leagues. Running backs are hard to come by, and that makes the opportunities for these players on your rosters to be sold for even higher prices and have a little bit more precedence on the trade market here. So in today's episode, I'll be talking about 5 running backs that statistically in the scoring column balled out in week 5. In week 6 here, we're looking to move off of them and turn those players into better long-term assets for our team. So my name's Gavin. I'll be diving into today's episode with you. Smash the like button before we get started. Subscribe if you're around here, and let's dive in. All right, kicking off today's episode, I'll be starting with one of my most disliked fantasy players of this season, this being Michael Carter, who popped his head out of the bushes to give us one more opportunity to sell high for this season. And for those of you that are still stuck with him here moving into week 6, now's your opportunity to move off of him. Unless you're the Breece Hall owner and are really set on having a handcuff option here, what are you still doing with Michael Carter? Are you still the guy in your fantasy league that is the Michael Carter truther, just clinging on to every bit and piece of this situation that you can? I've got news. It is time to move off. You should have done so earlier in the season after he had himself some productive games early on. Now you've got one last chance, though. This is like your final warning to sell Michael Carter here, who got himself 2 fluky goal line opportunities to score touchdowns. Now, he does not chart into a goal line role for the rest of the season. That is not the role I expect him to play moving forward. And if you're looking for some extra info to get you off of Michael Carter, to finally take that jump, to move away from him here it is. In both of Michael Carter's rushing touchdowns this week, Breece Hall was also on the field. Would you like to know who set up all of those goal line trips as well? It was Breece Hall, who had nearly 200 yards from scrimmage, had a 79-yard reception, which if you wipe off the table completely, he got stopped at the 1-yard line, where Michael Carter got to come in and pull a 2021 Kareem Hunt and vulture that touchdown away from him here after Breece did all the work to get down there. You've got a situation where Michael Carter's role has been completely diminished, especially this week, to those 2, or his production rather, not necessarily his role, to those 2 goal line carries for touchdowns. Now, you take that 79-yard reception off the table, Breece Hall's still chilling. He's still got over 100 yards from scrimmage and a touchdown on the day. He was stopped at the 1-yard line twice in week 5 NFL action against the Miami Dolphins. So he could have had a 3 total touchdown day. Breece scored 1 on the afternoon for the New York Football Jets, and Michael Carter ends up coming away with 2 of those end zone trips. Now, in the 12 opportunities Michael Carter got in this week's game, he had a whopping 33 yards. Yes, that is sarcasm. That's less than 3 yards per opportunity here. And a guy who had 2 touchdowns, like I said, probably the last time I'll mention that, hopefully, but off of 1-yard touchdowns. Now, the way those plays came to fruition here is you've got like a wishbone set with Breece Hall on one play off to the left and Michael Carter off to the right. They orbit motion, meaning Breece Hall travels behind the quarterback and Michael Carter as some eye candy for the defense, distracts them for a half second, and when they look over at Breece Hall, who's been killing them all afternoon, little Michael Carter squirts it into the end zone for 6 points. The other play, literally the exact same thing. They just flip the backs in the formation, so you think, uh-oh, this time Michael Carter's going to go in orbit motion. They're going to hand it to Breece. Nope, Breece goes back in orbit motion. Are they going to throw him the swing pass this time? Nope, Michael Carter squirts in the end zone again for another 6-point play. So what you're getting here is 2 premium touches from 1 yard out. Breece Hall, again, stopped at the 1-yard line 2 times this week. He's the better player. He's the bigger back on the goal line. He will truly, over the course of this season, prove precedence in this area of the field. His production has been better. He's been a menace in the receiving game. Zach Wilson is actually like empowering his pass catching role here by giving him requisite opportunities to catch the football on a weekly basis. The role I expected Carter to take away from Hall was the passing game, and that hasn't been the case here. So Michael Carter, sell high on him while you have a chance. Literally, find anyone in your league that is looking at, maybe it's the Lions owner with DeAndre Swift. They don't got Swift or Jamal Williams in their lineup this week. Someone is going to be desperate. There's been injuries at the running back position. There's been struggles to just find productive assets and names for your teams. Someone's going to need a pickup here for this week. target something you need on your team, maybe make a package deal here. It's not like you have to sell these guys straight up 1-for-1 for an asset. You can always do a 2-for-1 upgrade, or find some other area of your team to improve. As always, if you have trade scenarios for me, I welcome those in the comment section below. So let me have those, and I will get back to you guys as soon as I possibly can. Jeff Wilson here. I've been yelling about this, yapping about this since literally the first game they took over for the 49ers backfield. But ladies and gentlemen, the clock is ticking. We have to make a move here. Elijah Mitchell, it seems far away. It's a little less than a month out from now, but 3 weeks from now is the soonest that we could see Elijah Mitchell return, potentially based off the initial 8-week timeline given by the 49ers medical staff here for a return. Now, that's important because despite the fact that Jeff Wilson's been balling out, I had him as a start this week. He looked phenomenal, making plays, making cuts in the hole, jump cuts in space, making defenders miss, scoring touchdowns, 120 yards on the ground. He looks awesome. Like I said, it's fool's gold, though. This is a guy who is going to see his role supplanted sooner rather than later. You still got half of a fantasy season of opportunity for Elijah Mitchell when the time comes, and you don't want to be stuck on Jeff Wilson Jr. here, who, despite the fact that he's been balling out and has been a steady RB2, at times putting up top 12 weekly numbers at the running back position. I mean, he's a guy who has put up 3 10-plus point games without Elijah Mitchell on the field. He's had 4 opportunities where, he's been the starter so far this year. I'm not disputing the fact that he has been productive and reliable and a player you want in your lineup for now, but if you're looking to make a savvy move, upgrade to a player that could potentially give you season-long value, that is what we're doing here. Go find a guy like, who knows if someone would accept this in your league, but just tossing it out there. Ken Walker just, essentially got handed the job for Seattle for the rest of this season. Whether you've got someone in your league who just simply is unaware of the situation at play with Rashad Penny out for the year now, whether you've got someone that still doesn't trust Seattle's offense and the fantasy friendliness going on behind a Geno Smith-led team, make something happen. Again, it doesn't have to be that trade. Maybe someone doesn't accept that straight up in your league because clearly long-term Kenneth Walker is the more valuable player in your league. Make a package deal. Do something. Like I said, you don't have to trade these guys 1-for-1 to make an impact for your teams, but you can put together a way to move off of depreciating assets and benefit your team long-term moving into the rest of the season. Now, I want to preface this here talking through Raheem Mostert. Not every trade works out for every team. Personally, I feel it's in most teams' best interest to sell Raheem Mostert here. But if you're in a desperate situation where you really just don't want to move off of any running back production you have right now because it's working for you at this point in time, you're a thinner team, you've got really great elite wide receiver play, maybe you've also got Chase Edmonds rostered, I get it. You don't have to, panic and just ship off these guys for, the analogy I use or the joke I say is a bag of Cheetos, a bag of chips here. But I do think it is based off of the historical risk associated with Raheem Mostert and the identity offensively of this Dolphins football team. I truly believe it is vested in your best interest to sell him high here. Let's look at the last 2 games when Raheem Mostert has had back-to-back his season highs in rushing attempts. 15 in week 4 against Cincinnati on Thursday Night Football, 18 this past week against the Jets team that late in the game blew them out, had a defensive touchdown. Quinnen Williams absolutely annihilated Tyreek Hill on, Tyreek tried to tackle him high and he just said, "Get off of me, buddy," and sent him flying down near the goal line. However, the key situation that has changed the offensive identity for this team in both of those games is quarterback changes. You go from Tua Tagovailoa, the preferred option, the starter before this team, and an extreme pass-happy identity for the Dolphins offense, which is their identity. They prefer to throw the ball. That is a wide receiver-driven offense from Jalen Waddle to Tyreek Hill. Those two collectively are the most electric wide receivers in the National Football League. And then you change to Teddy Bridgewater. Teddy mans the ship. He ends up going out there. They're not expecting to start Teddy, so they run the ball a heavier amount of time. They give Raheem a heavier dosage of opportunities in that game, therefore setting his season high in rushing attempts. Now, I do want to say quickly before we get into this Week 5 matchup and breaking down that game, Raheem Mostert, if you're going to own a Dolphins running back, and like I said, I get that some of you aren't going to want to sell Raheem here. This is a position where, some players might be looking to buy him for cheap because there's still a community of people that for some reason think Chase Edmonds is the back to own here, but his snap count percentage and usage has went down every single week of the season, while Raheem's snap count percentage and his usage, his production has been gradually increasing for this team. So back to business here, back to a regularly scheduled program. Then you come into Week 5. Teddy Bridgewater is expected to be your starter. They have a situation where Teddy's a dang good game manager. Once went 5-0 once upon a time with the New Orleans Saints, filling in for Drew Brees after, his finger issue, I think it was at the time. Maybe it was ribs, I forget. However, Teddy Bridgewater literally gets knocked out of the game on the first play. He got body slam clobbered by Sauce Gardner, who came screaming off it might not even been his blind side, but he comes screaming off of the right edge here. So I don't think Teddy's left-handed. He definitely isn't. Not his blind side, but Teddy still never saw him coming and never saw the field after that point in time. Gets socked, literally thrown in the air. He's a smaller quarterback, just like Tua, and has an elbow injury and also goes into concussion protocol. And then we don't see him. And in marches good old Skylar Thompson, who is not going to be relied on to throw the football. Mike McDaniel, while his stock is trending down here after these two past games, I'm sorry, Dolphins fans, I'm not trying to hate on you here. This is just the reality of the situation from a public perception standpoint. I'm not hating on Mike McDaniel. I think he's a really savvy, really smart guy. And along with that, me just complimenting him here, he's not a dumbass, so he's going to run the football and not put the game in Skylar Thompson's hands. Now, it didn't work out in the end. However, the ground game was working. It was being effective for a extended portion of this game. He went 18 carries on the ground in this past week's matchup, over 100 yards and a touchdown. I believe it was 113 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. So you've got that ceiling production, but again, the offensive identity changed. They are going to run the offense through the receivers when Tua's on the field. We don't know when he's coming back. We don't know what the timeline is for that. We hope he gets healthy. Really, that's all that matters at this point in the grand scheme of things here. But while you've got Teddy Bridgewater and Skylar Thompson in this situation, look at the bigger picture of what's been happening the past couple of weeks here, why Raheem Mostert's numbers are popping and ballooning at the time that they are, and then start to understand that that might not be the case here for the rest of the season. The final warning, the historical question marks and risk factors associated with Raheem Mostert is since 2019, really Raheem Mostert's coming out party. As a Green Bay Packer fan, I'm traumatized by, the past year, 2019, Raheem Mostert rushes for over 200 yards and 4 touchdowns in the NFC Championship game against us again. That was his breakout season as a San Francisco 49er, where he has since traveled with his former staff member from San Francisco to the Dolphins here with Mike McDaniel. Since that 2019 season, that includes 2020, 2021, and this point in time through the 2022 season, so including the 5 games he has played this year, Raheem Mostert has played 14 games since 2019. I hate to project injury and be that guy, but when it's been such a frequent portion of your fantasy outlook, you're a running back over the age of 30, I don't like it. And I'm going to stay away here. He's explosive as hell. He is extremely quick in open space. He's a great fantasy asset when he gets the touches he needs, but his body hasn't shown the ability to hang on and be able to suit up and week after week sustain the amount of duress put on a workhorse running back. And again, I think the offense has some underlying context that needs to be put at play here. So Raheem Mostert, selling him high here. Kareem Hunt moving into our 4th option for this week. Had himself a nice week 5. And in plain and simple, every week that he pops off this season, I'm going to be selling high on him. Nick Chubb's the best running back in the National Football League right now. Plain and simple, I missed that in draft season. I can't believe what I'm seeing, but his elusiveness in space, we knew he was a great and efficient running back. There's a play against LA this week where he scampered up the right sideline, and then I can't believe how he made the defender miss with this little hezzy move where he just, straight up got him in a situation where he wasn't squared up to Chubb's hips and makes him miss, and then flat out just makes it look effortless, weaving down the sideline and scoring a touchdown. He is doing things right now that are completely unprecedented. That offensive line plays opening up holes for him. And once he gets to the second level, goodbye. One-on-one versus a linebacker is a total mismatch. And he's just in a situation where his talent and ability level is just better than the guy across from him. So if you're telling me the running back 1 in fantasy football right now is going to be in this offense, I don't want any part of Kareem Hunt. Like I said, he's a capable running back too, let's say, in a given week where he scores a touchdown. Guess what? He did that this week. But Chubb still went 17 for $134 and a touchdown at 7.88 yards per clip. So what else do you want me to do here? Hold Kareem Hunt? Now, maybe if you're the Chubb owner, sure, go for it. You want to hang on to him, of course, because you've got yourself still a top 5 fantasy running back if Chubb goes down. But man, the guys that are looking for running backs this week, the desperation at this position with how much scarcity it has, move off of Kareem Hunt while you can here. His vulturing has actually been scaled down a bit this season. We saw him have a very high level of touchdown productivity the season prior on a per game basis in 2021 before getting injured, especially early on in that season. So the fact that he has had scored 10 plus points in 2 games this year. Both of those games had touchdown production. He has had less than 10 points in 3 games this season, neither of which he had a touchdown scored. So he's 0 for 3 in terms of scoring 10 or more points without a touchdown, 2 for 2 when he has a TD, this week being included in that sample size. And he's had less than a 50% snap share in 80% of the games, the one exception coming in week 1 back at the start of this season. So the writing is on the wall here. This is an obvious factor for why we're looking to move off of him. And I think the situation really just illustrates itself here. And then finally, Tony Pollard. Now, I'm not going to argue with those of you guys in the comment section because I actually agree with the premise that Tony Pollard is the best running back on this Cowboys roster. I am not disputing that. Look at the yards per carry. Tony Pollard, from an efficiency standpoint, is on another level at this point in his career as compared to Ezekiel Elliott. This is the running back you want to own on this team if Dallas was distributing the touches in a manner that made sense. You're looking at this offense right now, and Ezekiel Elliott has outsnapped Tony Pollard consistently week after week after week. If we dive further into the situation here, Zeke is getting more snaps and touches on a per game basis, I believe, for one reason. He's getting paid more money. I hate to say that that's the situation at play here, but watch what happens. This is totally out of the context of a fantasy football space right now, but watch what happens when Dak Prescott is able to play football again. Those of you that are stirring the pot, and I'm not necessarily saying this is like you guys directly, but the community of NFL fans out there stirring that pot, baby. It's like the witch in the cauldron here, getting ready for Halloween season. Cooper Rush, there's a quarterback controversy in Dallas. This is like Jerry Jones' little creation here, is that even if Cooper Rush walks out this next week and beats Philadelphia and goes 6-0 in his first 6 games starting for the Dallas Cowboys, Dak Prescott's going back in that lineup for one reason. He gets paid more money. I don't know why Jerry runs his ship that way, and I'm not advocating for Cooper Rush to start here. I am advocating for Tony Pollard to be the starter in this offense and get more touches. That's just not how the NFL does it. And GMs, when they back a player with a check, are backing themselves and hoping that they can back up that inevitable production on the field to justify them paying that much money. So you're not going to see Dak Prescott on the bench. You're not going to see Zeke on the bench in favor of Tony Pollard here. I hate that it is that way, but Tony Pollard played in 55% of snaps week 1. Every other game this season, he's played 44% or less of the team's offensive snap share. Zeke, on the other hand, has played 64% or higher of Dallas' offensive snaps every single game except for week 1, where he still outsnapped Tony at a 58% snap share. Now, Pollard is insanely efficient. This is a guy who, if he rips a couple big runs early in the game, watch out because he's going to make an impact. It has flex lineup utility. However, back to the same frame of mind here. Teams are desperate for running backs. If someone in your league is willing to bite on the fact that Tony Pollard outproduced Zeke last week and looked so good to the eye test, let them make that mistake. Unless something health-wise happens to Ezekiel Elliott, in which case Tony Pollard is probably a top 12 weekly running back play, Tony is limited to a streaky and inconsistent flex lineup player. So I'm not buying into the hype here. I love the efficiency. I love the player. I love the playmaking ability, but they don't factor him in consistently enough as a pass catcher in the run or in the passing game. They don't, consistently give him 10 plus rushing attempts. It's just not something that's reliable or dependable in terms of fantasy lineup value. So, Tony, I'm sorry, but the leagues that I've got shares of you in, if I still have them, I'm looking to move off of them because personally I really don't own any Zeke shares this year at this point in time, which thank God because his ceiling has been abysmal here. I thought he would drag himself to a bit of a higher finish if he stayed healthy, but his numbers have been very, very inefficient in the spots he's gotten, and he particularly hasn't had many opportunities in the goal line because this defense is really winning these games and Dallas hasn't had to have much offensive production. So there you have it. 5 running backs to sell here entering into week 6 fantasy football. Really no blue chip players in this list. The guys that really, did their thing this week are guys that I believe in for the long-term scope of this season. And conversely, the guys that I think kind of stink, like Najee Harris, who we had in the sell list last week and then somehow found a way to make his value in stock lower here, are not guys that you really want to be selling at this point. Now, I said sell low on Najee last week, and I think that this 4.5 point outing this week kind of proved that to be true here. Hopefully things get better. I'm not really necessarily rooting against players unless you're Michael Carter. All jokes there. But yeah, guys, I'm looking to move off of here. 5 sell players for week 6 fantasy action at the running back position. If you enjoyed, smash the like button, subscribe, and check out some of our other videos in our week 6 fantasy football playlist. I appreciate the heck out of all you guys for sticking around in today's video. And again, check out some of those other episodes, and I'll see you there. Peace out.